Hello my friends and welcome to a brand new playthrough series of Distant Worlds. This time out we're going to be doing a few mods and we'll go over those right quickly here. If you're coming off the Ancient Galaxy series and wondering where the next episode is, unfortunately I've lost the save to that, so there will not be any continuations with that series. So we're going to start up a new one. So what are we up to this time? Well, as far as the standard theme goes, we're going to be using Harry 78's Distant Worlds Extended Universe, which basically extends out the vanilla game a bit with a few more races. Doesn't really change gameplay a huge amount. And also got some different graphic assets I've picked up along the way, and I'm not exactly sure where I even got all these, but I think most of them came from the Retreat UE mod. And maybe another mod out there somewhere, I forget. It was a couple months ago I put all this together, so I can't even remember where I grabbed all this stuff. But regardless, that's why you're seeing a bit different font here. I believe it's the Retreat UE mod that provides this kind of stuff. And last but not least, we are going to be running the Bacon mod. This is a new, well, it's not really a new mod. Roger Bacon has actually been working on it for quite a while. And he's been doing some incredible things with it. For instance, we can put our own splash screens on the front menu here. So I've come up with this for my playthrough series, and because it is a bacon mod, I had to put my tongue right in my cheek and put some bacon on the screen. So it's my Keskudon who just loves bacon. So that's what that's all about. I could sit here for about 10 minutes just going over what all the bacon mod does, but I think instead we're just going to set up the game, and once we get into the game, we'll be looking at the different options. But for now, I'll just bring up the forum post for this mod, and Roger Bacon is the author. And there's a whole bunch of stuff here that he's added to the game. And this is a bit different mod. It's actually a modified EXE. So it's not like a standard mod that you throw in your customization folder and just load up the game and go. You actually replace the EXE file. And this has allowed him to do quite a few things, like allows us to have a special splash screen on our menus and everything. And I think the EXE can read more than 4 gig of RAM too, if I'm not mistaken. So that's probably going to help performance out quite a bit. But there's all kinds of stuff here. Like I said, I won't get into it right now. We'll get into the game first, and we'll have a quick look and see what that's all about once we get there. It's probably easier to show it off than just to sit here talking about it. So let's get started. So yeah, I made up the screen for the series. It's going to be on the front of all my videos. So I thought I'd throw that up as a splash screen. So let's get into it. We're going to play a custom game as a standard Empire. And the first thing I've changed is we're going to play in a ring galaxy. If you follow me at all, then you know I'm pretty much heavy on the spiral galaxy. But I think this time out we're going to do the ring, which means most of the stars are going to end up on the outer edge here. And there's going to be a cluster in the middle where we'll start. So, and one of the changes that the Bacon mod gives us is the ability to have Bacon big galaxies with 2,000 stars. And I believe he's also taken the restriction off of the sector sizes, how many stars you can have in a sector. So you can have a 4x4 with something like 1,000 stars in it if you want. I think you can do that. And it's pretty darn crowded, so we're not going to do that in this game. We're going to go as big as we possibly can. And for this series, we're not starting in pre-warp. If you're looking to see how to get going on pre-warp, then just hit up most of my other series. I always usually start with pre-warp. But just to mix things up a bit, I think we're just going to go to starting. We'll start as a standard Empire and a standard age and all that kind of stuff. So we won't have to worry about the pre-warp stuff at all. And we're going to set our aggression to unstable and our difficulty to very hard. I was toying with extreme, but I think maybe we'll just relax it a bit and go with very hard. I have a couple other things I've done to the game that's going to actually increase the difficulty a bit. So I think we'll just back off to very hard for this playthrough anyways. Research costs, because we're not going to be trying to beeline to get out of pre-warp era, I think I'm going to put it very expensive, just so we spend a bit more time with the technology as we go. And I'm guessing that, providing I don't do something stupid like lose the save like I usually do, this game might go for quite a while. So we're going to have lots of time to flesh out the tech tree and everything. Plus, there's a couple other options for researching, too, with the Bacon mod. So we'll look at that once we get in. So we'll leave that at very expensive. Space creatures, put at many because, I don't know, why not? Pirates I'm going to leave at normal, but I'm going to make them weak as well. And they will not respawn once we destroy them. They'll start nearby as well. We'll have them around at the beginning of the game, and then later on they'll just get eliminated, and then it'll be just a war of the empires, basically. So let's go to the next screen and have a look at our colony prevalence. This drives how many stars are going to be habitable and all that kind of stuff, and what goods are around. And so we're going to leave that at scarce. So finding planets to colonize is going to be quite tricky. We're going to do independent alien life as rare as well. So we're not going to be able to just jump on a bunch of indies and take over their planets and expand that way. And in fact, the Bacon mod has actually made it much harder to take over the independent planets. So we'll have a look at that. If we come across an independent, I'm wondering if I shouldn't go to scatter just so we have that option. I'm going to leave it at rare because we got so many stars out there. I think there's going to be lots of colonization options anyway. So yeah, we'll leave it at rare. If we happen to come across one, then we'll utilize it or take it over or do whatever we want to do. And I'm going to leave the colonization range at 1 sector because the outer ring is going to be very, very tightly packed. So there's going to be lots of opportunity within the 1 sector. So I think I'll just leave it at 1 sector. Our race is going to be the Keskudons. And if you've been with me since day one, you'll know this was the absolute first race I ever played on this channel. So it's going to be nice to go back to those roots. We also played them in the collaborative series that Daz Tactic and I put together. Well, he put it together. I just sort of tagged along. But yeah, that was a very fun series. If you haven't seen it, check out the playlist for that. It's about 40 some odd episodes long, but it was a lot of fun. We had guest YouTubers and everything. So check that out if you want. I'm not going to go through too much of the race right now. We'll do that once we get in the game, but and I'll explain exactly what I intend to do with these guys. One thing I have done too, and actually I'll explain that on a different screen here. Okay, we're going to be named the Zumanoids, and the reason for that is I've kind of adopted the naming convention for myself that I'm always Montezuma, like Aztecs fame, and the Zumanoids are the our race, so I'm going to be Montezuma of the Zumanoids. And there's our flag, and we're going to start in the core. So we're going to start in the core, and for my test games, it looks like we start with about maybe 6 or 8 other races, maybe not that many. I think there might be an independent or 2 in there with us, and about 3 or 4 pirates. So that should be interesting, and we'll have a quick look at that once we get in to see what our ranges are and everything, just see how we can handle that. Everybody's going to start on a normal system. There'll be no excellent starts or anything, so we'll just start normally. Size will be starting. Tech level will be normal, so no pre-warp again. And corruption normal. I never monkey with that anyways. And our government will be Way of Darkness. This is the Shakturi government, so this should be interesting. And again, we'll get into the race, what the race is all about once we get into the game. So other empires. There's going to be 20 of us in this game, so me and 19 others. And we are going to have the Shakturi and the Mechanoids in this game. They are not scripted. They're not going to be storylined like the storylines for the Shakturi or anything, but they will be in the game. And they're not normally available for this, but maybe I can bring that up for a sec here. What do we got here? Races. Here we go. Okay, if we look at this, if you come into your distant worlds and come into customization, I don't recommend doing this to your base game, but if you come into one of your mods, and extended universe is what we're using, so come into the races folder and you'll see Mechanoid and Shakturi. So if you click on that and go into edit, I'll just show you here, but there's an option called playable, and that's generally set to no for both the Mechanoids and the Shakturi. So I've just made that a yes. And that allows us to actually set them up in the game. So that's what they are here. Now I'm starting these guys out on the rim, so distant. So I'm assuming they'll start out on the rim. And by the time we get to them, they should have enough time to grow into something very formidable. They're going to start off very small like the rest of us, so they're not going to have any scripted military or anything like that. They're going to have to build their way out like the rest of us. So they're not overpowered right from the beginning of the game or anything. So they're going to have to work towards that. But the races do have quite a few buffs that's going to allow them to grow quick and get big military and stuff like that. So they're going to be a big stumbling block. I've also added the Lemurish in here because they are also meant to be a big stumbling block. They're not really meant to be played. Harry78 threw them in as just something that grows quick and is going to be formidable as an opponent. So I figured I'd put them all out distant, and so they're all going to end up around the rim, I'm assuming. That's about as distant as you can get from our start anyways. And everybody else is just going to be random races, and we're going to have them starting, and normal home system. So that's kind of the idea there. So we'll go to victory conditions, and I have set all of these to 100%. So this is basically a sandbox game. You can achieve the same thing by unchecking all this, but by keeping them checked, you can actually check your progress on the victory screen to see how you're doing against the other races. With all these unchecked, you don't get that option. So I just kind of like to see how we're doing against everybody else. But basically, it's a sandbox game, right down to the last man standing is the only way we can win this. Again, we won't have any Shakturi storylines, even though they will be in the game. So this should be quite interesting just to see how big they'll get without the scripted storylines and everything. And no shadow storylines because we're not starting in pre-warp. And I always struggle with this setting here because I always wonder, should I leave it on? And myself, I don't engage in tech trading. The other AIs will between themselves. As far as I know, if you leave this on, they will trade tech between themselves. If you check it off, then they might not. So this might make it a bit more challenging. Now, I have no definite proof that that's actually the way this works, but I'm just kind of assuming that is truth. But yeah, correct me if I'm wrong, but we're going to leave it checked anyways. And allow giant kelters. That probably doesn't matter because we're not starting in pre-warp anyways. And I think that just applies to the pre-warp kelters that spawn once we break into warp drives. So that probably doesn't matter, but I'll leave it on anyways. So let's start the game. And because I have a nice shiny new computer, I don't have to worry about pausing this while this galaxy creates itself, because it doesn't take that awful long. So I'm sure I can probably just yap about something while we're doing this. But the bacon mod is something to behold, let me tell you. There's a lot of options, and he's actively working on this. I know there's a new version coming out, he said, sometime in the next bunch of days, but I could have waited for it. But I wanted to get going on a new series, and it might not even break the save game to upgrade to the next version anyway. So we'll just have to play that and see how that works. Okay, so here is our empire. We are the Zumanoid, and I am the ruler of the Keskudons. Our government is the way of darkness. We have one colony and one system. So we are a standard empire in the classic age. Your empire has begun to expand beyond your own star system. Other mighty stellar empires are also moving out into the stars. Meanwhile, pirates, smugglers, and mercenaries still hold control over uncharted regions of the galaxy. Can you defend your growing empire against these forces and prosper? Yeah, we'll see. Okay, so a couple things we need to do. Constantly expand and use diplomacy, blah, blah, blah. All right, so we're going to start playing and hit pause right away. Now, the first thing the Bacon mod suggests you do as soon as you get into a game, and the sooner you do this, the better, and that is to hit a key, any key, because a lot of the settings are external to the game, and the only way to read them in is to actually hit a key and do something. Now, I don't know whether the pause key does that, but I'm just going to hit F2 to bring up the colony screen, and that should get the Bacon mod all kick-started and ready to go. But before we look at the Bacon mod, let's just maybe have a look at our race here for a sec. And we'll just come into the Galactipedia. And I won't go through all this, I'll just do a quick summary. But we're a very old race, and we believe that the galaxy is our own. And we claim all rights, and any other life is considered worthless and almost seen as an infection. So we're all about extermination. So, and we're a slaver race, so depending on how many slaves we have is an indication of power, and we're not very good allies, and the only reason we'll make alliances is to maybe create a temporary ceasefire to gather for a later assault. So we're very backstabby. And we have a special reactor available to us in the science, and we'll look at science in a bit here, so we won't go too much into that right now. But we exist on volcanic planets, and our reproduction rate is 20%, which is about mid-range for this game. And we're aggressive, cautious, unfriendly, intelligent, and unreliable. So not overly friendly whatsoever. Our ship maintenance is minus 10%, troop is minus 30%, and we have a lower war wariness of minus 45%, which is going to help us out because I intend to make this race very, very aggressive. We can also get another 5% on a war wariness reduction by just having Magellanus nut at any of our colonies. So that's going to be quite nice. And Caribbean spice, which is a super luxury. We can get plus 40 strength to our troops if we have this on one of our colonies. Now, unfortunately, we have to mine this resource, which means we'll have to colonize a desert planet with the Caribbean spice and make sure that we're extracting it from that planet with a colony. We can't just stick a mining station on it and transport it back. We actually have to be on the planet to mine it. So that's something we're going to have to look out for. And can you imagine if we find a desert planet with Caribbean spice that has a fortress at Torak on it? Our troops would be absolutely unstoppable. And we get a bit of a development bonus for silicon. And I'll go into race victories in a sec here. We'll look at that in a different screen. And colonies with the extermination policy have a 10% growth rate bonus. So I think right now, while I'm looking at that, I'm going to open up our colony screen, and I am going to come down to, now I don't know whether I need both of these on exterminate. Same family, we're reptilians, so other reptilians will assimilate. I think for now, we're just going to go exterminate. So any other races, whether they're reptilian or anything else, we're just going to exterminate them. And that should give us a 10%, I don't know why I'm hitting that. We don't have any other colonies to apply this to. But that should get our growth going and just a little bit better. We're only growing at 1%, so every little bit will help for sure. Okay, and characters, we're less likely to generate ambassadors and scientists, which is kind of unfortunate. I like scientists, but we're more likely to generate fleet admirals and troop generals. And troop generals start with inspiring presence. And I'm not exactly sure what that gives us, but we'll figure that out as we go. And our special government is Way of Darkness. We'll look at that when we get into a different screen. And our special reactor is the fissile exploitation reactor, which again we'll look at in a bit later once we get to science. And we have a bit slower construction speed, which 5%. That's not too bad. So we're going to be building things a little bit slower, but there might be some racial trait or leader traits or something that'll increase that for us. So we can always hope for that. We have lower tourist income because Keskudons do not engage in tourism. So we can build resort bases, but our race will not use them. We could probably build a resort base near another race, nearby race, and they will use it, and we'll get the income from it, but we'll only get minus 50, or we'll only get 50% of it. So whether we're even going to worry about tourism in this game, maybe, maybe not, we'll see. And lower trade income. Well, we're not looking to be too friendly anyways. I might do some trade with other reptilian species, but I might just restrict ourselves to that, and everybody else will just be very standoffish with and declare war as soon as we can and all that kind of good stuff. Okay, so with all that out of the way, the first thing I want to do before we get going on anything is rename the star. That's the first thing I usually do, and there's a side effect to doing this. First of all, I can't pronounce that, so it's a good thing we're renaming it. So I'm just going to rename it to Zuma. Staying with our Zuma theme. And if you rename your star like this, then any ships that you build will end up carrying that name, and you'll end up with Zuma Backstabber or Courage of Zuma as a ship name and stuff like that. So it will incorporate that name into the game, and I don't know, makes it a little more customized, I guess. All right, so I guess we want to rename our homeworld to Zuma Prime, so we'll get that done. And I usually drop my taxes to 0 in a pre-war game. I'm not going to do that because I need to build military right away, and I want that income to be somewhat steady for the moment. So we're going to have to live with our 1% growth rate for the moment. It's a bit exploity to drop it to 0 and grow your planet out and then do stuff like that. So we'll be a little more legitimate, I guess. Okay, so we've got a few mining stations around already. So I just got to get used to starting in a standard start here because normally I'm starting with nothing. So we got a few things around. It looks like we have a weapons research station there. Mining station. So let's just come in here and have a quick look and see what we're actually mining right now. Okay, we got a fuel source. That's Keskudon. We got some gold. steel, so we got all that good stuff. It doesn't look like we have any polymer, carbon fiber, or any of the important stuff. Helium we'll have to get a source of, so we definitely have some mining we got to get done as early as possible. Chromium, yeah, we don't have any chromium yet. So the first order of business will be to do some exploration, which we will get into for sure. The victory screen, like I said, this is where the reason I'm setting everything to 100%, because we can track our progress on this screen. And I'm not going to say much else other than that, because I see we're at 20 minutes already, and I kind of want to get through this initial episode 0 as quickly as possible. So, but yeah, we need the fewest treaties and destroy the most enemy troops, exterminate or slave the most people, subjugate the most empires in the galaxy, and have the most experienced general. I won't go into any of this other stuff right now. So we'll close that out. And I'm going to come into the policy screen just for a minute, because the ship boarding and stuff, I just like to adjust quickly, because I want to capture everything, always capture. Okay, and I do not want, right now I don't want to upgrade enlisted military ships to our designs, because chances are anything we find right away are going to be better than what we can build anyways, so might as well just check that off. I might put it back on a bit later, but we'll see. And we'll have a look at our leader. Our leader is not named that. Our leader is named Montezuma. All right, so he's a free trader, which doesn't quite make any sense, but we don't want to be engaging in too much trade, but okay, we'll take it, I guess. Plus 10% trade income. Unfortunately, we got a happiness deficit here, minus 10%, and that's not a scalable trait, so we're going to be living with that for, well, the next little while. I'm not sure Way of Darkness just how it handles leaders, whether we get them replaced every now and then, and I can't quite remember how that works. And minus 10% diplomacy, that kind of fits with what we want to do. We want to be very introverted species that doesn't really deal with too many other empires around. And we have one intelligence agent, and he's a sabotage guy. So I get the feeling we might be sending him on a suicide mission so we can get an espionage guy. So we'll look at that a bit later. I'm going to pop in here for a sec, and I can tell right away we have at least 2 pirates very close to us. So we're going to have to deal with that. Now, don't mind these numbers. I've paused the game immediately, so they haven't spent their money yet, so we're probably going to see those come up to like 8 or 10 ships right away once they start building stuff. And we'll come in here and have a quick look at Way of Darkness. So we have War Wariness minus 80%. So stack that on top of the possible minus 50% we can get from other stuff, then we can have a minus 130% War Wariness reduction. We are going to be able to stay at war for quite some time. Maintenance costs, excellent, minus 30%. Growth rate is plus 10%, so that'll make up for the one hit that we take from our leader here. Oh no, that's approval. Okay, never mind. Growth rate, 10%. Okay, that's fine. We're only growing at 1% anyways, so that's definitely going to help. Research speed, plus 30, perfect. And troop recruitment, plus 50%. And we got some ships and everything out and about already. We got 5 escorts, 6 frigates. And I think that's about all we're going to look at in here. There are a few other things here, but we'll look at those as we go along. And let's come into research for just a minute. I get the feeling this is going to be like a 45-minute episode just to get things going, because I still got to explain the bacon mod yet. So just bear with me while I get through all this. We start with torpedo weapons, and I think those are basically on our bases right now. Don't think any ships are big enough to actually house those in any capacity. Bacon mod adds a couple of things here when it comes to starfighters. We can actually individually control our fighters and all that kind of stuff, and we now have standard fighter bays and standard bomber bays. And what this means is we can get our carriers once we get that tech, and we can maybe make dedicated bomber carriers, dedicated fighter carriers, or we can mix it up however we want. We can maybe put 2/3 fighters and 1/3 bombers, something like that on our carriers. So we can actually specify just what kind of mix we're going to be carrying. So that's pretty cool. So that's one thing with the bacon mod. Looks like we're researching missiles. I'm going to let that go because I do like missiles for our bases and stuff. And we started with rail guns, which is usually the first thing I research anyway, so that's perfect. And we have armor plating. So we come into the next tab, just have a quick look. We're doing enhanced construction. Perfect. We'll let that happen. And I'm going to go straight for accelerated construction. Yes, the Bacchus shipyard. Oops, Bacchus shipyard is in here, but the one thing I'm thinking I want right away or as soon as possible is resupply ships. I think that's going to help us get out to the rim, and because we're going to have to refuel. We don't have enough fuel range unless we really pack on the fuel capacity. So I think refueling stations are going to be definitely the way we'll want to go. So resupply ships I think are going to be very important. And we got our basic engines and everything, basic hyperdrives. So we got 12,500 speed and all that kind of good stuff. And we also have, this is the special reactor that the Keskudons start with. And these particular reactors require Tidarius, and I usually don't go for Tidarius right at the beginning of the game, but with these guys we're going to have to. So we'll have to make sure we get a source of that. But it's a pretty good reactor. As you can see, the energy output is 116, storage capacity is 200 compared to 60 and 105. So very good reactor. It's more efficient too. If you look at the bottom line there, 3.81 fuel units is needed to burn in order to get 1,000 energy, whereas only 3.25 fuel units is required here. So this reactor is pretty good out to here, but we might want to get out into these ones as well at some point. So we might have to back up and get the rest of this tech here in order to get out here. But at that point, we should have pretty good science production and everything, so it shouldn't be too bad, I guess. And we'll go into the last tab, and proximity sensors, I'm thinking I'm going to click that off. I don't think that's a huge... Yeah, it kind of is, but I'm not going to concentrate on it right now. Because we're not going to be engaging in any tourism and very little trade, I think I'm going to come down and beeline to Open Trade Network and see if I can get that. Really has not a whole lot to do with actual trade. Colony development gets 20% bonus, which does help in the money anyways, and colony income plus 30%. Now, colony income, I guess trade is part of that, but that'll definitely help bring out the cash production for sure. And what do we start with? We got one space station with 90, 90, and 90 on it for research, and one weapons research out and about. 353 research potential, so I might bring these numbers up. Not sure I like 270 on weapons, but I guess we'll live with it. Maybe I might even these right out and just get them all to 270. I'll make it up on the space station. I'm not going to do a special science station right now. I think we'll just utilize the spaceport for labs at the moment, and we'll tweak it out a bit later. So I'll just leave that. And if we come into ship designs and latest buildable, I think I'm just going to go and do our science on the medium spaceport right now. That's what we have. Yes, we start with a medium spaceport. So I'm just going to buff up the science on this. So I'm going to just manually upgrade and maybe just call this a regional port. And I'm going to sort by category, sort by name, and I'm going to make sure that this is on all weapons. Basically, if you have a mix of weapons on your station, just change it to all weapons, and then everything will fire as soon as they can, rather than waiting for point-blank opportunities and stuff like that. Okay, so I'm not worried about weapons. I want to try and bring these two up somewhere around the 270 mark, just to match that, just so that we're kind of even on all the areas. And it's 150, 180. I guess that'll do. It's a little bit overkill for what we need, but I think we'll just go with it anyways. And we already got our medical and recreation facilities on here too. So that will do for the beginning game. I'm not going to spend too much time on that. So just go save. And I'll click that off so it's not automatically retrofitted or anything. I think we need to have some automation running. I don't run with automation, so that probably doesn't apply too much. And before I forget, I'm going to upgrade that space station right now. So right click, retrofit to a regional port. There, just get that out of the way, make sure that's happening. Okay, and as far as the other ship designs, I think I'm just going to go with what they dealt us. These basically, I think I had a quick look when I came in here with my test games. Yeah, it's just railguns, so I think I'll just leave them like as such. Okay, let's see. Anything else we need to look at? Now, I should maybe explain that the Bacon mod adds the ability to put labs on our exploration ships. I don't think I'm going to worry about it right at the moment, but we'll definitely maybe look at that next episode or the episode after or something like that. But yeah, you can put a lab on here, and depending on what lab it is, if it's a weapons lab, then it'll engage in weapons research, and then you can have them sort of researching stuff as they're out and about, booting around, exploring, and all that kind of stuff. So that's it basically turns it into a science ship is what's happened there. Okay, so I think that's kind of everything we need to do, but right away before I do anything else, I'm actually going to build some ships right away. And I'm just going to go with the frigates, and I'll just fill the construction queue right now. There's 6 of those, and I'm just going to go into our military ships and fleet those up. And I'll probably build like 6 more as soon as our money comes up a bit more. So I'm just going to hit new fleet, and might as well pop the automation off. So that'll get built, and then they'll just wait for orders. Okay, so that's that. So let's talk about the Bacon mod a bit more. And I'm just going to, in my other screen here, I'm just going to bring up the README so I can sort of get through all this. Yeah, this is going to probably be about a 45-minute episode, so I just want to get through all this on episode 0, and then we'll get playing next game. You know how it goes. This first episode, you never get off pause, and I think that's kind of a standard thing. Okay, like I said, the Bacon mod is an EXE mod, which means you replace your game EXE, and it does all kinds of nice things like getting us the ability to have a splash screen, and we can, and I think it reads more than 4 gig of RAM, and I think I mentioned all this already anyways, so I guess I'll just skip over that. Now, the first thing we're going to notice, and I might have to take the game off pause just for a sec to demonstrate this. Nope, we're going to do it. Okay, there's gravity wells around the stars, which means this dotted line around here means anything inside here will not be able to hyperjump out. Now, I believe you can hyperjump in, but you can't hyperjump out. You have to impulse your way to this line, and then you can hyperjump. So there's gravity wells around different stars, and depending on the strength of the star, like if there's a 107.6 K on this particular star, so that gives us this range here. And I wonder if we can't maybe get into this system. Maybe select the star here and select the ship. Might have to be in this system to see it actually. Yeah, that ship might have to actually be in this system. But if we look at the star, this is 156K, which means that dotted line is going to be further out. So the different intensities of stars dictate just how far this hyperjump range is. So dimmer stars, this circle will be tighter. Brighter stars, then the range will be out here somewhere. So I hope I explained that okay. There was something else about stars too. What was it? I can't remember at the top of my head. I was going to mention something. Oh, I guess it's not that important. Okay, so the next thing, if we select a ship and if we hit Control S, I believe it is. Okay. We have battle stats, and your crews can gain experience. Right now, this ship is actually at a crew level of green. And as we go, this will increase to experienced and veteran and all that kind of stuff. And you'll get different buffs, and I think they're randomly generated. But it could be anything from plus 10% sublight speed, or 10% to shield and or shield recharge, plus 10% to weapon range or weapon travel speed, 10% weapon damage, targeting, 25% targeting countermeasures, static energy usage. So all kinds of things happen as your ships level up. Very, very cool. And the same thing is true with fighters. As with crews, fighters can gain experience as well. So when a pilot gains his first experience perk, he will get a custom name as well. So we can look at that once we get into fighter stuff. Some of this still will be hard to demonstrate because I don't have the technology yet. Exploration ships and construction ship sizes are now maxed to the military maximum military ship size. So if we look at this, we can see we can build a maximum ship size of 230. Previously, I believe construction ships were, you could build them quite big because you build them on the planet. Anything buildable on the planet always had a better size limits. And it says exploration ships too, but as far as I recall, I believe exploration ships had the default military size. So I'm not sure how that applies here, but regardless. Bacon civilian shipyards. If we click on the hammer button, this is the only place you can actually do this. You can't go into the other screen to do it. We can build freighters ourselves. The state has to pay for them, so it's not like the private sector is going to maintain them. The state will actually, anything you buy yourself, you will have to pay for through your cash flow maintenance. But there's other options as well. You can have, you can order these ships to do different things. And if I come down, yeah, you can assign cargo missions. So you can select a freighter and press Alt-3 and move the resources from a source to a designation. So if we colonize a new planet, we can actually get some freighters, and this is possible with passenger ships as well. We can actually dictate the source and destination for those activities. So we can actually get a small freighter to actually start shunting our most, I'm not sure if you can actually pick what resource, but I think it'll be like the most stockpiled stuff at your homeworld will end up being shunted over to your new planet. So steel and stuff like that will probably get shunted over quicker than normally letting the private sector do it. So that it's an option. And we'll see how that works out. We might end up utilizing that. We might just do it for demo purposes anyways. So there's that. And passenger ships, we can maybe do that with new planets as well, is set them up as a source and destination. So they'll just actually go back and forth, and we don't have to wait for the private sector to actually get around to doing it. We can just order it to do it right away. Very, very cool. And I think there's a few other tweaks to the freighters too. They'll actually wait and try to max out their load if their destination is a planet or a base or something like that. So the freighters have been tweaked out quite heavily. And then just have another look here. Yeah, I can order passenger ships. We already talked about that. And there's a ship finder as well. So if we hit Control E, I believe, brings up a ship finder. So if we want to know where the Zagros 001 is, Zagros, how's that spelled? I think you have to make sure you spell this right too. So 001. This would probably be more handy on ships that we manually name. And if you hit enter, and it will select that ship. And yeah, so if we have a ship called, I don't know, Monty's Big Ship, we could go into the ship finder, type in Monty's Big Ship, and it will select it, and then all you have to do is, once we're out of that, is just click on that, and then it'll take us right there. So it's a bit of a handy thing. There's other options in here too. We can combine fleets, and there's commands to do that. And yeah, so we could, I think it's just like hashtag join fleet name, stuff like that for the currently selected ship and stuff like that. We'll play with that a bit more. I'm trying to make this as brief as possible to get this episode done with. Let's see, we already talked about assigned cargo missions. There's more ship images per family of ships, so our destroyers can have like more unique graphics on their designs. So we'll look at that in a bit as well once we get designing some ships. Fighter bombers can have longer range. In addition, fighter bases will always have fighters from bases will have 1.4 times the range of other fighters. So any fighters on bases will have a bit better range, which is very, very cool. And there's a bunch of settings. You can go into the bacon settings.txt file, which ends up in your root directory, and you can change a bunch of default values. And better interface, he's changed the font, so it's a bit more readable here. And order multiple troops. Actually, let's do that right now. This is kind of a cool thing. When you come in and you want to order a bunch of troops, you'd have to sit and hammer on the recruit button, like bang, 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 to recruit a bunch of troops. But if we bring up the ship finder, and if we type in, I believe it's exclamation troops, say we want 10 of them, just do that, and boom, There we go, 10 of them. So we could do that with 10, 100, whatever. I'm going to let those build because I do like, I'm going to need these to protect the, or to go invade anything that we might find. So I'm just going to garrison all this just to make sure that we do have one troop transport. So I just want to make sure they don't come around and pick all these up on us. I'm pretty sure there's a troop transport. Yep, there's a troop transport right here. So I think, yeah, it's already got load troops. So it was already trying to load troops. So could probably just stop that mission, and that'll take that off automation too. What else we got? A ship cycler, so we can go control, I believe it's semicolon. I think we might need one selected first. Okay, it's Alt is what we need to hit in order to cycle through ships. So, and we can go backwards as well. This is all listed in the forum post and the README that you get with the mod itself. Cargo mission viewer with a cargo selected. Probably not going to show us anything right now because I'm pretty sure they're not doing anything. Control plus, I believe. Nope. I'm not sure. Oh, control plus enter, sorry. There we go. Okay, so it brings up a bit of information, the transport, and it shows where it's coming from and where it's going to. So it's going to go over to this gas mining station. It's going to pick up 1,500 argon and bring it back to the spaceport. And it's not currently carrying anything, but if it had already loaded up, we'd be able to see exactly what its cargo is. Again, very, very cool. There's a damage viewer, so you can see I don't have any damage yet, so I guess we won't look at that too heavily right now. And I already discussed science ships, so we can put labs on our exploration ships, turn them into science ships. Bomber bays and fighter bays, we already talked about that in the science screen. And stars and galaxy size, I already talked about that on this game setup. And custom start screen, we saw that on the way in. And there's also a bacon stats viewer. I don't think I'm going to show that off right away. I'm going to save that for much later in the game. Basically, I don't want to spoil myself as to what races are in the game. It'll list all the races and give you a nice chart of how you're doing on finances and all that kind of stuff. So I don't want to look at that because I don't want to spoil just what races are in the game. I already know what 3 of them are, but I'd rather not know who the rest of them are. So we're not going to look at that for a little while, but it is there if you want to use it. And I think that kind of sums up most of the stuff. Oh, and there's also a facilities.txt. It's one of the new features coming in the next version of the Bacon mod, which will allow, I believe it's terraforming. Planet terraforming. So if you end up with a planet with a really crappy quality, we have the option to actually terraform it to bring it up to, I think you can define this in a text file somewhere to say 80% or something. So if you have a crappy 20% planet, you want to colonize it, well, we can terraform it up to a reasonable rate, and then we can have a decent quality planet out of it. So hopefully we can actually upgrade the latest versions of the Bacon mod as we go. And I just noticed we are at pretty much the 45-minute mark. So I might bring this to a close, and next episode we'll get things rolling. And actually, I never even zoomed out to see exactly where we are here. We're sort of on the outer edge of the core. Lots of gas clouds in here. Wow. That's interesting. And a big storm there, too. But, yeah, that's interesting. All the test games I loaded up didn't have anything like that, but okay, well, we might be able to exploit some of those gas clouds or something. But if we select one of our frigates, you can see that fuel ranges are going to be pretty tricky as far as getting out to the edge. So at some point here, all our ships are going to want to refuel about this range right here, unless we stock them up with huge amounts of fuel. So I'm hoping that the empires over here won't have very good success getting in this way either, because basically what I want to see is the early game just dealing with whoever we're dealing with here. And then as we go, we'll work our way out to the edges. I'll probably hop up our science, well, I guess they will be science vessels, or exploration vessels with more fuel so that they can at least get out here. And then maybe I'll pepper some resupply ships here, like about this level here, maybe in some of these gas clouds that are peppered around. And then we'll try to get some of this explored as quickly as possible. Exploration is going to be the key here, so we definitely want to hop that up as quickly as we can. Okay, I think that was a pretty darn wordy episode. I did a lot of talking, and I hope I explained things okay. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to checking out this bacon mod. I think it was Ian Jackson in the comments on my channel update video asked me to maybe check it out, and I was like, okay, what the smeg is a bacon mod? So I had to go check it out, and absolutely loved what I saw. So this is going to be quite interesting. All right, so I'll bring this one to a close, and we will get going next time. And let me know in the comments what the video quality and the sound quality is like, because I'm using different techniques to record my sound, and I'm using desktop publishing and editing for the first time. I never did that before, so I'm kind of teaching myself that. So if there's anything amiss, I'll try to get it corrected for later episodes, and we'll take it from there. So very excited to get started, and I hope you guys will join me, and this should be very interesting. Let the bacon flow. Until next time.